if folks are building infrastructure, that's actually great. They should benefit from it. They should also pay us.
What are some of the use cases that they're trying to do? Maybe generally it's yield, but what maybe more specifically are you hearing from these companies?
Where you guys are at with bringing native Bitcoin onto StarkWare, integrations with different yield products.
Welcome back to the Rollup. We are your hosts. I'm Andy.
I'm Robbie, and this is your home to learn from the biggest guests, the brightest minds at the tip of innovation.
Our goal is to help spread the collective knowledge of everyone in our community.
We are breaking crypto out of its echo chamber and taking it to the real world.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy a quick word from some of our awesome partners who make this show possible.
Crypto UX? Broken. AI? Can't trust it. Let Magic Newton set you free. It puts your on-chain transactions on autopilot. Does all the work for you 24/7 so you can go do what you want. The vision of Magic Labs. The creators of embedded wallets. Used and backed by the best. See for yourself. Simpler crypto UX. Verifiable AI agents. Newton.xyz.
Introducing SummerFi, one of DeFi's oldest and most battle-tested platforms. SummerFi automates your exposure to DeFi's highest quality yield so you can sit back and enjoy this summer. Deposit stablecoins at USDC or USDT and let SummerFi route your funds into optimized, low-risk lending strategies. With over 100 million in instant liquidity and support for over 34 protocols across Ethereum, Arbitrum, and more, you always stay in control. Choose from a wide range of curated strategies reviewed by independent risk experts, all in just a few clicks. So why work hard for your yield when you can be lazy? Start earning now at summer.fi, the home of the lazy summer protocol.
Up next, we got our guy, Eli.
Good to see you.
He's recovered from the dinner last night.
Yeah.
It was fun. We were going back and forth with Hasib and Ken from a Bitcoin company building on StarkWare. Bunch of good faces there.
Xverse, that was.
Xverse, right? Of course. He's coming on tomorrow.
Yeah.
I believe so. Excited for that. Let's talk about the foray of StarkWare into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I think you're getting a little bit of pushback from the Ethereum people, huh?
I'm not even sure about that. I would say that, part of the Ethereum community is happy with that. Part of it maybe is unhappy with that. But certainly I think, I'll start. It is very much in our vision to go there. I started my journey into crypto in 2013 at the Bitcoin conference. And when I presented there, I basically said, look, guys, with the ZK stuff, we can do things better and scale Bitcoin and offer it privacy. That's how I, co-founded Zcash. That's why StarkWare exists. It's for these things. So for me, it's been a 12-year-old dream to bring this stuff onto Bitcoin. So, and anyone who understands that must be a supporter. And those among Ethereum folks who understand it are supporters.
Yeah, man. And we're closer than ever, right? With the covenants coming. I mean, that core developer there last night, I'm blanking on his name.
Jeremy Rubin.
He mentioned that you're like almost a month away from covenants on Bitcoin, which has been the big thing for OpCat, for all these upgrades.
Yeah. So I'm not, it will be a weaker form of covenants because right now a lot of the excitement is about this upgrade called, or soft fork that is called CTV and CSFS, which together, first of all, help Lightning really greatly on all kinds of protocols similar to Lightning, which is really great because those are the best kinds of, privacy preserving, cheap payments without overloading Bitcoin. And I'm a big supporter of them. So that's very exciting. I'm also very excited just to see that the core developers and the protocol developers are, coalescing around something. That's amazing news. In terms of helping things like Starknet, it will help a little bit because you can get BitVM more efficient. So that's also great.
I'd love to hear the story. And you mentioned privacy is so important and sometimes a controversial topic. Maybe it shouldn't be. Why, in your view, is privacy so important? And why has it been such an integral part of your journey through Zcash, Ethereum, and now ultimately Bitcoin?
So privacy for all of us is extremely important. I do almost all my consumption, day-to-day consumption using the metal card by Argent.
Oh, wow.
To you. Yeah, you guys should also get it. It's free for, everyone can get one now. So this beauty is like I don't know, a credit card by Argent.
Mastercard.
Yeah, beauty.
Yeah.
Today's stream is sponsored by EtherFi. We are promoting their cash card there to recommend.
Okay, they recommend it.
Z is non-custodial usage of crypto on chain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not using centralized exchange cards.
Right. So in terms of privacy, like I don't want everyone to see all my transactions, right?
Of course.
So you need that. The problem with privacy is really a matter of UX. The ZK technology to provide it exists there, but it's pretty hard in terms of the UX experience, and hopefully we'll solve that as well.
So part of StarkWare's new idea here is this kind of Bitcoin unleashed vision, right? We were speaking about it last night a bit. Let's get up to speed about the latest developments of where you guys are at with bringing native Bitcoin onto StarkWare, integrations with different yield products, and really like what you're seeing the demand for kind of like Bitcoin Fi, if you will, is. Who's using it? What do they want to do? Let's just get all caught up here.
Yeah. So I would say that there are broadly, maybe two main use cases and one kind of funky use case. So the funky use case, there are all of these Bitcoin indexer-based assets like runes, BRC20s, all kinds of meme coins and stuff like that, Doggo to the moon and others. And there for that, we have a runes bridge that was built by Jeremy Rubin's team, Char, already exists. And, people are just bridging over to Starknet, getting a better UX. We also use the bridge in the other direction. So we minted for the very first time. You can now have USDC in runes form, which you can access on, Odin.fun and on Magic Eden and trade it with respect to the other runes. So a little bit of, wild, more speculative degen kind of stuff. That's the funky, but, let's say institutional side. Then the big word is yield. People are, you have Bitcoin, it's this amazing asset, but most of its value is unleashed. Sorry, it's leashed right now. And on Starknet, we want to help unleash that value, to put it into use. For instance, you want to borrow stables against your Bitcoin without leaving custody of that. You want to do it safely. That's one thing we're going to offer on Starknet. We would like to secure Starknet with Bitcoin, right? To have the set of operators include Bitcoiners. So you're going to have yield both for BTC staking on Starknet, and you will generate yield while you're doing DeFi, borrowing, participating in perps exchanges and stuff like that on Starknet.
And what are some of those ecosystem projects that you're particularly excited about that are, helping to pioneer some of this movement?
So I'm very excited about, there are 3 different sectors that are thriving on Starknet, and each one of them has probably the most innovative, kind of stuff on there. We don't have that much usage, but I think Bitcoin will help unlock that. So one sector is, of course, DeFi. The very best AMM out there, hands down, is called Kubo. It's now also on Ethereum, but its, home base is on Starknet.
Moody's great. Did a podcast with him, co-founder of Uniswap V3, and was the original inventor of concentrated liquidity.
Yeah,
as I know. And
Booey, yeah.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of cross-chain volume that's also happening through Akubo. Yes. And Akubo, of course, started on Starknet. So
yeah. So we have like amazing DeFi protocols like Akubo, Avenue, a DEX aggregator. We have paymasters that abstract all the fees away. Then we have things like lending protocols like Vezu. Over the next 2 weeks, Extended, which is Revolut backed and ex-Revolut folks. Perps exchange is coming onto Starknet. That's big news. It's going to be added to the existing perps, including Layer Akira and Remus Dex. And then that's the DeFi sector. Another amazing sector is the consumer app sector, where we have things like Focus Tree, which is an app that kids and teenagers and university students use to focus. They don't even know that it's on Starknet, but it already has an integrated wallet. 500,000 monthly active users on it. Just amazing. And then you have, just yesterday, Argent, which was still is a wallet rebranded into Ready and is now opening a neobank, which again is based on Starknet. So we have the consumer app sector. Finally, we have the gaming, which is centered here in Brooklyn with the amazing cartridge team, games like Eternum, Loot's Realm, and all kinds of other fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious from the consumer apps perspective. There's a thriving ecosystem here. Is there an app that you sort of have in the back of your mind, and maybe if you weren't so busy, you would build it yourself, but you'd like to see get built using all of the existing infrastructure that you've put forth through privacy, through StarkWare and StarkNet? Is there an app that you'd like someone to come out and maybe if someone doesn't, you build it yourself?
Call to action here.
Well, first of all, I'm extremely bullish on the two existing consumer apps. So Ready, which is a neobank, but in which you truly own your assets in a way. You don't get a call from your bank. You can just in 5 minutes on board. You have your checking and saving accounts. You're gonna have you can pay into wire transfers. You have an IBAN. You have like a it's an amazing product, and you have your credit card. I just showed it, all of that stuff. That's amazing. I also really like these just consumer apps where you truly own your reputation. So Focus Tree is one example. Something we need people to own more of their reputation as opposed to rely on whatever credit ranking, agencies. And the way to do it is just bring more of your life onto the blockchain, and then you can attest. You're the only one attesting truly to your, reputation.
Yeah, interesting.
That's one powerful application of ZK proofs that I love to talk about because it's so intuitive. We go to a bar, we need to show our ID, prove that we're 21 years old here in the States. Well, why does my ID need my address and all of these other things? And especially when, social security numbers are involved in all these things, when I can just do a ZK proof, I can prove that the thing is true without giving up the real information. I was filling out something with my social security number yesterday, and it was, I still have that feeling when I input it in where there needs to be a better way, and there is a better way. And I think you've done a lot of work with ZK and StarkWare and StarkNet as proponents of the privacy elements. We talk a lot about the succinctness of ZK proofs and the scalability that it does involve, and not so much about the privacy elements that are just as important.
Yeah, I agree. So ZK can do a lot in terms of privacy and also scalability.
Yeah.
Going back to the Bitcoin side, So there's this. So obviously there's these Bitcoin treasury companies, and we had the question last night about what people are bearish on, and several people said the blow up of these treasury companies. Ironically, Pete Rizzo, the podcast host and OG Bitcoiner, he's bullish on them. He's like, it's gonna blow the thing up. Very bullish. Either way, though, what's been happening is that these companies have basically been like effectively harnessing retail with a price of this equity that's higher than the NAV of the holdings of Bitcoin. And then retail has been buying the stock and kind of been allowing them to refinance debt, buy more. But that's basically going to slow down over the next 6 months as, that there's more and more of these and people get a little bit more, smarter and sophisticated. One thing that those companies are then going to try to do and already trying to do is returning to finding yield as a way to provide a differentiated offering to their investors and to maintain that kind of like, yes, exactly. So there's a lot of competition for who's going to be able to get that kind of Bitcoin. How is StarkNet? How are you guys going to go and focus your institutional efforts with some of these companies to be the yield provider for some of those treasury companies?
Right. So of course, people will be able to stake Bitcoin and get yield. The main differentiator for StarkNet there is that we are, the biggest in terms of the ecosystem, the number of real applications that people are already using. Right. At the end of the day, right, you want the network to offer intrinsic value to users. Right. If it's just about farming some token with, a promise that someday something will happen, it's okay, but it doesn't really cut it. And we've seen some of these, schemes recently, and they don't do too well. StarkNet has a thriving ecosystem of visionary builders building everything from games to consumer apps to DeFi to payment systems, things that people actually need, with a best UX, best privacy, best, everything, best smart contract language, best ecosystem. So when you are getting, when you're staking and supporting this network, it's a little bit like, mining Bitcoin or staking on Ethereum. You are doing something that is part of an ecosystem that actually offers value to end users. So that's, I think, the biggest differentiator. We also pride ourselves for being like, I invented, co-invented Zcash, ZK Starks, the standard technology. We have the best team. So many of the things that others are implementing, we invented them. So like, it's just like you don't go wrong with IBM. You don't go wrong with Starknet. And like and safety matters a lot when you think about Bitcoin or, your digital assets. So that's another differentiator for us.
Innovating finance, global, institutional, and on-chain. Deep liquidity to drive capital efficiency. Now, maximize yields on institutional-grade liquid staking with METH. Unlock $1 trillion of capital via Bitcoin. All of this secured by Mantle's treasury of billions in stables and ETH capital pools. This entire ecosystem is coordinated by a vast network of seasoned VCs that are aiming to create the next generation of banking and financial technology. This is Mantle.
Are you speaking with, maybe it's not MicroStrategy or those sorts of Bitcoin treasury companies, but maybe it's miners, maybe it's centralized exchanges, these large pools of Bitcoin? What are some of the use cases that they're trying to do? Maybe generally it's yield, but what maybe more specifically are you hearing from these companies?
Okay, I'm hearing the yield word a lot, but I think they all understand that yield, just in the sense of farming or, some points reward or something, is not what you want. Many of them are looking for, they understand, they look at the Ethereum ecosystem, right? It's amazing, the DeFi there. It is offering real use cases, borrowing against your assets, investing them, doing all kinds of things. They're saying, we should have something like that somewhere that it's more natively connected to Bitcoin. And I think there's a list of Bitcoin L2s. I think we're pretty well positioned to be, the best, the first, the safest. So I think those are some of the discussions we're having with, these, whales, mining pools, institutionals.
Yeah, and they don't want to sell either, right? They want to borrow against.
Yeah, they want to borrow against. They want to put it to use. They want to unleash Bitcoin's value.
They want to unleash the, yes.
That may answer the question from earlier about like, what is the potential application here? Well, it's like a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin. We see everything and all the movements happening around stablecoins. You're right that these institutions don't want to sell their Bitcoin, but they want to unleash the capital. And so therefore, they just want to use USDC or USDT. But then they don't get Bitcoin exposure. And so if you already have Bitcoin exposure and you want to try to unlock more capital from collateralizing the Bitcoin is, I've heard it called the best collateral in the world. And I think that's the case. It would make sense, a natural progression of that would be then collateralize the Bitcoin and unlock stablecoin liquidity off of it.
Yeah. But you just borrow USDC or USDT against it. Like that's what people would want to do.
Right.
More than anything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And whether that's done natively or intrinsically with the Bitcoin, you could do it in a money market. You can do it a variety of different ways. I think we may see one of those maybe on Starknet here, coming up soon as more Bitcoin liquidity comes into Starknet.
Yeah. What's on the horizon? Covenants, some small, changes, not the big one maybe that you guys had been pushing for. I know you've been a big advocate. What's the next 3 months look like for StarkWare and Starknet? Bitcoin looks like it could go to all-time highs here pretty shortly. Yeah, Mania could continue. How are you going to capitalize?
Okay, we're going to continue building this home for good applications. And, just yesterday, Ready announced their neobank, which is on Starknet. That's amazing news. Over the next 2 weeks, Extended, which is an ex-Revolut team, is launching their Perps exchange on Starknet. I think it has a chance of giving Hyperliquid a decent
run for its money, huh?
Yeah, run for its money, and offering something that is going to be far more decentralized and better UX, and hopefully also better trading experience. That's like over the next 2 weeks. Later on through the summer, we are going to be starting, first of all, a lot of integrations with on and off ramps. Some big names, I don't want to announce them till they're ready, but like some of the, blue chip kind of stable providers and on and off ramps are going to be launching on Starknet, hopefully very soon. Then we're going to have BTC Fi, which is basically getting, getting extra STRK for putting Bitcoin liquidity into a whole bunch of protocols, DeFi, that we mentioned. And then later on in the fall, we're going to have BTC staking. So that's what roughly the 3 months ahead look.
Awesome. And looking a bit further out, what do you think about the sustainability of Bitcoin, the asset, the security budget? Is part of the vision for Starknet to generate some fees for Bitcoin network?
I hope so, yeah. Well, I mean, for that, well, it really depends on Bitcoin. Like, and I don't want to decide for Bitcoin, right? There are those that argue strongly that you do not want to put any more activity, the filter boys, don't put anything, don't give us any fees. Bitcoin should be for very little payments. And the fact that the mempool is often very empty, they're saying it's a feature, it's not a buzz.
Small
okay?
blockers.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're wrong, but I'll respect. Bitcoin is bigger than my own thoughts. In that case, value will accrue in other ways to the L2s like Starknet, which is fine. I think the better way is for Bitcoin actually to further unleash its value and allow things like L2s to also keep part of their state on Bitcoin, which requires things like CAT. And yeah, so I mean, there's also another interesting thing. There's a lot of discussion of post-quantum security.
Yeah.
ZK Starks are post-quantum secure. You can have signature schemes. You can basically make all of Bitcoin very post-quantum secure if you use Starks. I had discussions with many important core developers about these things. I know that Adam Back, Luke Dash Jr., a bunch of others are actually very favorable for the use of, let's say, things like ZK Starks for post-quantum security, even if they don't necessarily want to see more bloating of the blocks. And we can live with that as well.
Kind of a completely separate question and thought here. If you were running the EF right now, what would you do with regards to the relationship between the L1 and the L2? And kind of how does that shape your view of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin L2s?
I would do something I suggested them a long time ago, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they need to have more of a capitalist economic point of view, which basically says if folks are building infrastructure, that's actually great. They should benefit from it. They should also pay us, meaning we should enshrine payments, some sort of taxation on the L2s that will flow to the L1, so that everyone is happy, and enshrine that in a way that makes both of these things sustainable. This is a very common mean, time tested for like this whole thing of just saying everything is just fully open source, kumbaya, and like we don't care is not good. And we try to convince, the EF many years ago that, to go down this route in which you think also about like value accrual and incentives in both directions. But that's what I would advise.
Yeah. And I mean, that was somewhat attempted with like just using Ethereum L1 for data availability, but it was kind of not exactly, that didn't really pan out to be.
No, what do you mean? They went like with the blobs. The whole thing is, we'll make this cheaper. We'll just make it cheap. We're not going to charge anything for this.
Right.
We're going to make it much easier for you.
But due to competitive pressures, right?
What?
Due to just like other competitive pressures.
Not really, no. I don't know why. I think I don't think it was a good
kumbaya thing.
I don't know. I don't think it was a good choice.
Yeah.
I think if I was them, I would say, it's really great that actually the fees are going high. It's pushing things out to L2s, but it's also charging very hefty fees. It's creating more efficiency and actually bringing in money to the L1. And they could even go a step further, require that if you, in order to be an L2, you're sort of expected to, do some issuance towards Ethereum. And it could also work in the other way around. They could send a portion of the fees accrued on the L1 to some of the L2s or the applications. I would think in those terms.
Yeah. Sort of like very back and forth rather than this kind of like.
Yeah, and I want to say more than that. So on on Starknet, we had, right now, we basically drove the fees to pretty much zero. So there's no fees really coming in because we wanted all the, as much traction to be on it. But we had it when the fees were high initially. We had a Devonomics program that basically said the application developers that are building applications that users value, they will get a portion of the fees. And I want, once fees go up again and there's congestion, which is going to be very hard now from Starknet because we have 1,000 plus TPS capacity, but I think we'll get there. I want portion of fees to be flowing to the the Kubos, the Vezus, the applications who are driving demand. I want them to get a portion. It's good for me. I think Ethereum should do the same thing.
Again, though, I feel like as a result of maybe the app chain idea or of this application specific sequencing idea, now these chains are forced to prioritize application builders more than they were in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Robin, Andy, I apologize. I have to jump.
Yeah,
to my necessary.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Cheers, Elliot.
Thank you.
Always a great time.